Hello everybody, welcome to this session. In this session, we are going to start a new chapter. Chapter 11, it's about the ethical landscape of AI in academia. In this chapter, we separate 5 topics. The first one is on the regulatory considerations for data privacy. We are going to talk about how data privacy needs to be protected in our academic research process. And the section 2, it's about regulatory considerations for intellectual properties. Intellectual property is very important. They need to protect it. And sometimes when you use AI tools, the images or content they created, they may violate someone else's intellectual properties. Therefore, we need to pay attention to in order to avoid violating the rules and the academic issues. Section 3 is about regulatory considerations for compliance essentials. We want to know the current rules and policies about data protection and intellectual properties among ethical issues. We need to follow those rules and policies carefully, otherwise our research work or things that we put out there in social media may come back to harm us. And section 4 is about ethical challenges that we are facing. Although there's rules and policies, but using AI, it's a very complex issue at this stage. But we use it quite often for its standardization, quality, and efficiency. But we need to pay attention to all these ethical issues involved and the challenges that we are facing. The last section of this chapter is about AI in academic evaluation. Now people started using AI for doing academic evaluation, which means assessing the quality for papers, assessing quality for research grant, or assessing quality for presentation, or even for students' exams, etc. There are issues involved, and then we need to pay attention to that too. So this is the overview of this chapter. In the first section, we are going to talk about the regulatory considerations for data privacy. Data privacy involves many issues, and this is very important and very challenging. In this session, we are going to know that overall regulatory challenges faced by using AI in academic research. There are many different issues that we need to be aware. 3 major concerns for data privacy specifically. It's about data anonymization and transparency and security. These 3 major issues that we need to pay attention to. The most probably important and probably strictest regulations on information privacy, it's probably the EU's GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. This is the EU's policies. The EU has these strict policies on protecting information privacy for individuals who are in the EU. And using AI has kind of working on a role that on the board of ethical, legal, regulatory issues. We really need to be careful about using AI. Particularly if you are in EU, whether you live in EU or work in EU, as long as you are in EU, you need to comply with these rules. And this provides very good examples for the rest of the world. It concerns data controller, data processor, and data subjects in the EU. It could be a data controller means that it could be a company. You control the data. You probably say Amazon have clouds that store the data, and it's based in the EU. As long as the data controller lives or work in the EU, it concerns you. A processor means if you use tools with a company in the EU, that it concerns them. And data subjects means that although you don't live and work in the EU, but you collect data from Europeans who live in the EU, therefore your data subjects are in the EU. these rules will concern you too, will apply to you. Therefore, you need to pay attention to. A summary of these rules includes several things. It specifically address issues in data transparency. For example, the purpose limitation. Which means that data controller, data processor, they need to be very specific about how we use data. Every time we use data for a certain purpose, we need to make it really transparent to data subjects. Like on the websites, for example, if you fill out this form, you need to make it clear to the users what do we use your data for. That's a purpose limitation, and how we use your cookies, for example. That's a purpose, and you need to declare it really clearly. And that's also right to be forgotten, and now it's called right of eraser, which means that users' presence on the website, they have the right to be forgotten. They have a right to be erased. They don't want to be known on the website. They don't want people to access their personal info on the website if they choose not to. Therefore, there's a specific rules and regulations about this too, and that's also right to object to automated decisions. AI or any kind of websites probably automatically save your file, store your file, and all that. They use it for a particular purpose automatically. Users have the right to object to that, to oppose to it, to say no to it. Therefore, the data controller, data processors, or the companies, they need to make it clear. They need to protect users' right. They cannot violate users' right. And the users also have the right to compensation, which means that data subjects, if the data are being used for certain purposes, they need to know that they have a compensation if their data are being used, if they agreed to. So there's a right for compensation as well. So GDPR has many rules specifically addressing all these issues. So this is a very good example for protecting data privacy. And so we want to use this as a template to address these issues. There are three areas that we want to focus on. The first one is data anonymizations. Anonymity means that we want people to be anonymous. We don't want people to be known. That's the basic way to protect their privacy. When data is anonymous, that means we don't know who those people are. We don't know their personal information. We don't know their personal data, who they are. We just know, they're just data. But we can identify who they are. That's what we mean by data anonymization. AI tools actually access those personal data and maybe even use those inputs in the external servers. And then sometimes they automatically just store, use it, and even train on those data sources. So if you use AWS from Amazon or use Google's cloud, your personal data probably are in their servers. And they probably automatically just save those data. And they process those data. Maybe they use those data for their own AI training purposes. We need to be careful on that. And then if your research involves sensitive and confidential data or personal data, we need to guarantee private protection to your data subjects, your respondents, your participants. We need to make sure that we don't know who they are. Their personal identity cannot be known. That's their privacy and confidentiality. That's a very basic things. So data anonymization means that we remove all this personal identity from all the data sets so we can guarantee privacy and confidentiality. Otherwise, AI's data probably automatically just use those personal data in the external servers. External server means that companies probably can access them and know who they are. So we need to make sure that we store data, we remove personal identity from the data set. And better yet, if universities or institutions can provide institutional sandboxed AI environments, which means that they have their own, AI servers, AI environments that's not accessible from outside, from other companies and other sources, then maybe when we store data there, then we don't need to worry about, personal info being accessed or being stolen. So this is about data anonymizations. The second part is about data transparency. Data transparency is very important. It's a very fundamental requirement in GDPR. In any research that as long as it involved participants, then we need to make sure that the informed consent is documented, which means that we need to ask the permission and they need to sign the informed consent to agree to participate in your research. If they don't have this informed consent and if your data collect their personal information, that could violate this, academic integrity issues. Therefore, institutions, ethics committees, or generally speaking, there's an institutional review board, IRB, in many countries or many universities that govern this information requirements really seriously. There's a procedure you need to follow, the files you need to present in order to get the approval before you can conduct your research. Particularly if your research involves, personal info, like you do interviews, asking participants about their personal questions, personal information. In this kind of scenarios, informed consent is required. IRB, Institutional Review Board's approval is required. If your research does not comply with these requirements, it cannot be published. Even your thesis could be troublesome. Therefore, we need to comply with all these rules to make sure data transparency is done properly. The third one is data security concern. Data security means how do we guarantee that data is being protected. People can access it. Besides data anonymization and transparency, this further protect our data set. Many AI tools actually use external servers like AWS. It's done by Amazon. Google use their cloud server. Meta, Facebook, they use their cloud servers. If you use their AI tools, the AI tools data probably stored in those servers, those are proprietary cloud servers, which means it's personalized to those companies. The company or this service providers may have access to those data, and therefore the data is not secured. How do we protect the unauthorized access or even information misuse? It's a very important but also very challenging issues nowadays. Like if you use self-hosted AI models, that'll be better. If we can have our own AI models, we train our AIs, or you use the AI servers in our own institutions, that will make sure that it won't be accessed by external resources or companies, particularly if it involved sensitive and confidential data. If institutions can invest in private AI environment infrastructure, then faculty members, students, or the company's members, they can just use that infrastructure or servers internally. Therefore, we don't need to use clouds or external servers from outside. Therefore, outside companies can access the data set. That will make it more secure. So this is about the data security concern that we need to address. So all in all, when you use AI tools for all these research purposes, there are issues that involved, and the three major ones that we have talked about is anonymization, transparency, and security issues. We need to pay attention and make sure that we don't violate those issues and we comply with those ethical requirements. particularly if your research is involved with sensitive data set or personal information. And if you're using external servers, we need to be really careful about that. External servers, AI tools typically are trained in different companies' servers. They could be accessed by them. Therefore, we need to make sure that your data not be retained by their training purpose in the future. If you use the external servers, maybe we need to sign a contractual agreement, like data processing agreement with those companies when you use their external servers, so they cannot use your data, they can access your data based on the agreement. So it will be bounded by legal requirements. So those are attentions that we need to pay to when we use in AI tools for our research or for our presentation or for our AI training. Thank you all for listening. This is the end of this session.